Hi, I'm Rob with We Keep Recycling, and today SMP's Carbon, Composite, Evolution, Stratos, and Glider saddles, all using the same basic shape with different levels of padding to provide different saddles for different folks. Starting off with the basic design, we have four signature components. You have visually the end-to-end channel, which provides soft tissue relief. You have great sit bone support at the rear of the saddle to direct that weight through your sit bones and off the front of your crotch. At the front of the saddle, you have a beaked nose, which relieves pressure in an aggressive position or while climbing from the front of your crotch. And then, of course, we have what you can't really see here, but it's there, is a slight dip in the center of the saddle following the contours of your body. All of the SMP saddles have those four signature characteristics, but they execute them in slightly different ways to provide a truly custom level of fit. The SMP Carbon is 165 grams and the lightest in the group. It's constructed, as the name would suggest, from carbon fiber. So the shell is very stiff with almost no give, and it's clear coated for a low friction finish. Flipping the saddle over reveals SMP's signature stainless steel hollow rails with 8 centimeters of clampable area, the largest in the saddle biz. It has all the hallmark features of SMP design in a lightweight, firm package. For folks who like carbon saddles but are looking for a more anatomically correct design, this is a great option. But make no mistake, for folks who like a padded saddle, you really won't make it up with the anatomically correct design. It's still a very firm saddle. The SMP Composite is a synthetic leather-wrapped nylon carbon shelled version of the carbon saddle. Exactly the same dimensions, and it's also unpadded. The difference is, with the shell material change, you pick up a bit of give in the middle of the saddle, as well as a little bit more friction because the surface is a synthetic leather. The additional give makes it a little bit more comfortable. However, it still has the same very hard feel. And so for folks who don't know they like an unpadded saddle, slight cautionary tale on this, it can be a little uncomfortable. It does have all the hallmark features of SMP, so if you're a fan of an unpadded, leather-covered saddle, the Composite's a great option. The SMP Evolution is a minimalist padded version of the Composite. SMP puts a thin coating of their high-density foam here to increase sit bone comfort and remove the slight harsh nose that the Composite has. Has all the same features of the SMP design: channel, rails, nose, and sit bone support design. However, I must make a note here. While it looks like it has a fair bit of padding, because SMP uses a higher density foam, it feels closer to an unpadded saddle than it does to a padded saddle. The key feature here and why you'd buy the Evolution is because you don't want the Composite with no padding, because you want to remove that uncomfortable nose experience that some folks can have. So if you spend a lot of time towards the front of the saddle and are looking for an SMP on the minimalist side, the Evolution is a great option. The Stratos is a more reasonably padded version of the Evolution. As I mentioned, the Evolution has very little padding and can often be confused with a saddle that has no padding when you're riding. The Stratos gets in that zone of a firmly padded saddle. Visually, it appears to have more padding than you're probably comfortable riding with. But because it's a higher density foam, it doesn't have that squish to it that you'd expect with a padded saddle of this nature. SMP has to use this high density foam to prevent the cutout from collapsing, and it otherwise does a very good job. Visually it's a little misleading, but the Stratos is great for folks who like saddles in around 130 millimeters, need to pick up the anatomically correct design of the SMP, but are looking for an otherwise very performance-oriented saddle. The SMP Glider picks up more padding than the Stratos and adds a little bit of width. The Stratos is 131 millimeters wide, whereas the Glider gets up to 136. All these saddles are using the same shell properties, and so the only difference is in the amount of padding. with the glider being slightly above average amount. Great for long distance folks, or folks like myself who have very tender sit bones and are looking for additional comfort on the rear of the saddle. Because SMP is committed to having that saddle be very performance oriented in this lineup, we have no issues with chafing up front or squishiness in the padding. All these saddles tend to run a little bit heavier than their competitors, and that is a result of the actual engineering behind the saddle. The rails have an additional amount of material to prevent what essentially is two components, a left and a right, which is joined at the tip and rear, from shifting while you're riding. So this additional material back here adds many a gram to the saddle construction. Additionally, higher density foam weighs more than lower density foam. So we tend to see these saddles running anywhere from 15 to 40 grams heavier than a similarly spec'd competitor's product. Another drawback is that the saddles aren't flat. Now that's more anatomically correct because we're not flat down there, but it does cause a limited range of movements with the saddle in certain positions. If you go level with a book on the top, and you have a hammock position here, which will force your body to want to spend more time towards the middle. That's where half our customers spend their time. If you're like me, however, you put your nose slightly down and you pick up a flat section in the middle and transfer more of that weight to your sit bones. So while this can be a shortcoming for folks who tend to like their saddles flat, you can overcome this limitation by bringing the nose down slightly, transferring more of that weight to your sit bones, and creating a flat spot in the center. It also makes hanging off the nose a little easier. With so many models to choose from, it can be a daunting task to find the right one for you. We've got a process, and if you want to reach out to us, we can help you find the right one that meets your riding needs. Rest assured that SMP is currently the most anatomically correct design on the market, and with all the models they make, there is the right SMP for your needs. I'm Rob with We Keep You Cycling, and if you have any questions about these SMP saddles, other SMP saddles, or any of the saddles we carry, call us or email us info@wekeepyoucycling.com.